the Royal Grenada Police Force to facilitate this press briefing. In the room, Acting Commissioner of Police Edwin Martin, Superintendent Vanny Cowan, the officer in charge of the Community Relations Department, and Superintendent Sylvan McIntyre of the National Disaster Management Agency. This morning, we will be talking more in depth about the ease in the regulations that go into effect today and how the RGPF is operationalizing those regulations. And we'll also be discussing how NADMA fits into the current operation of the RGPF during this state of emergency. Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Robertson. And let me take the opportunity to say a pleasant good morning to members of the media and the listening audience to this press brief. I must hasten to indicate that the early call for the press brief is driven by nothing other than our passion to ensure that you, the members of the public, are adequately informed and to afford an opportunity to clear up any sense of ambiguity or doubt as we get into our first day of business activity. Hence the reason why we pulled forward the press brief for 7 o'clock this morning. However, before getting into the substantive matter that embodies the law enforcement approach we're going to take in policing the next 7 days, there are 3 matters I would like to make reference to. First, as you are well aware, and unfortunately so, we have recorded our 8th homicide for the year. This is absolutely uncharacteristic, sad, depressing, and all efforts must be made for us to reverse this trend that seems to be an average of 2 homicides per month. In this context, I strongly appeal for tolerance, patience, and respect in dealing with each other and in our quest to resolve issues of dispute. I want to urge members of the public to use the RGPF and, where appropriate, alternative third-party interventions to resolve conflict. I also appeal to community leaders and persons with influence in the community to engage individuals as a means of ensuring that we keep the peace and that any situation does not escalate into homicides or any sort of violent acts. The second issue I want to refer to is driving through roadblocks during a state of emergency. We've had 2 such incidents in the past week. One incident, there was a genuine case of a medical emergency. And in the other case, it was sheer belligerence and a total lack of respect for law and order. I must compliment the officers at those respective checkpoints at the material point in time for the exhibiting of tremendous restraint in their courses of action. For if they had done otherwise, the outcomes could have been catastrophic. And I want to therefore here remind members of the public that a state of emergency is a very serious situation. And while you may have a justified case of emergency, it does not justify you driving through a roadblock recklessly. I want to urge you to go up to the officers at the block, explain your situation. Our police officers have been briefed and know what are the exceptions in a state of emergency and to exercise discretion in responding to those. So please work with us in those circumstances. I must indicate, however, that in both cases, the individuals involved has been arrested and charged. Finally, I want to appeal to us as a people and also appeal to our respective media houses to be a bit more responsible in the use of social media and the posting of information. We are all challenged with the fight against a very formidable disease. And we should not have to spend valuable time responding to false, irresponsible rumor and scaremongering messages. Last night, I received a flood of messages and phone calls to answer to a rumor that the RGPF Coast Guard turned back a Vincentian vessel with food and cooking gas for Pity Martinique. I want to state here that this is absolutely false. I have spent a number of time speaking to the commanders of Carriacou and our Coast Guard in an effort to verify this issue over and over again. And just repeatedly say that this is false, and again, I call on individuals to be a bit more responsible in how we treat with social media and the posting of information. And wherever there is an issue involving the actions of the RGPF, rumor or otherwise, I want to ask us, members of the public and media houses where appropriate, to please call for verification. It is unfortunate when an established media outfit would publish such a story without any attempt to first verify. This is indeed sad, and I trust it would be the last that we will have such an incident. I now move my focus to addressing the various issues that will be involved for the next 7 days in our COVID-19 operations. And I will confine my comments here to the businesses and activities that are approved to operate. If you do not hear your business, entity, or agency, or if you are in doubt as to whether or not you should be operating, feel free to call into the RGPF to seek verification. But for the period April 20th to 27th, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, as previously articulated, will be business days from the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I must hasten to indicate, however, that our supply chain, which is the sales vans, wholesalers, and delivery trucks, will operate Monday to Friday. The fact that supermarkets, shops, and will be opened every other day, we must do the supply chain every day of the week to ensure that they are adequately topped up. So the supply chain will operate every day of the week. Additionally, our manufacturers that are approved to operate will also operate every day of the week, Monday to Friday. In addition to this, and going back to the Monday, Wednesday, Friday operation, the following businesses, entities, and activities are so approved. Accountants with firms that needs to go in and deal with finances and salaries and other related matters. Bakeries are also approved to operate. Banks, credit unions, building a loan and money remittances, such as Western Union and MoneyGram. Butchers have been included as well. Our commercial ports continue to operate as have been, and there is no change to that. But on the issue of barrels, I know that has been an area of concern, and I want to add a bit of clarity. I need to state here that operating on the direction of Cabinet and in close collaboration with the COVID-19 committee, who directs the RGPF activities and who constantly responds to the concerns and needs of our population, we have been making some changes, and all of the announcements I've made so far are as a result of those changes. As it relates specifically to barrels, it has already been decided that commencing today, Compass Shipping will start to distribute the barrels that that company has, but it will be done in a controlled manner. Compass will contact on a daily basis and on the days of operation, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, specific individuals that should be coming to collect the barrels. If you have not been contacted, do not go to Compass Shipping. Wait until you are called, and over a period of time, I'm sure everyone will be engaged. So Compass Shipping will start the operations today. Also today on the issues of barrel, we are finalizing discussions, and Customs will be leading a meeting with the agents responsible for shipping barrels to finalize a process for clearing of barrels at the port. Once this is finalized, members of the public will be informed, and I want to anticipate that that will kick in relatively soon. Also in the provisions, we are providing opportunities for eye care providers to operate. Farming and fishing continues to operate as previously described. And in terms of farming and farmers and the sale of produce, that will continue to operate at the parish level with the established farmers' markets. Gas stations will be open 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And this is also open for the first time to members of the public as well. Hardware stores will also operate. Home delivery services is permitted for grocery, restaurants, and courier service. So yes, the activities of DHL and FedEx will also commence during the days of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Inland revenue, insurance companies, maintenance services, but specific to house repairs will be permitted. Manufacturers, we already touched on, will operate Monday to Friday. Medical practitioners, pharmacies and drugstores, restaurants will be allowed to operate for takeaway, drive-through, and delivery only. Telecommunication retail outlets, veterinarians, and wholesale grocery stores and shops. So our supermarkets and our shopping, as we have been accustomed to, will operate Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We will see for the first time the removal of the parish boundaries on those days, the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. On those business days to allow individuals to cross border. However, you will not see the opening up of the public transport system at this point in time. So that's as much as the information I will want to provide you at this point in time. And if there are areas of questions, we will deal with it in the question segment to add further clarity. I thank you very much and pass you back to Ms. Robertson.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, for that update as it relates to overall operations and the regulations that are in place for this week. We go now to Superintendent Vanny Cowan of the Community Relations Department.
Thank you very much, Ms. Robinson, and good morning to the listening and viewing public. Another of our press brief. Sorry we have to wake you up this early this morning, but it was very necessary for us to get this message over to you. Notwithstanding all of what the Commissioner would have said, the RGPF continue its operational focus not only on dealing with the state of emergency, but also focusing on crimes in general and ensuring that Grenada remains safe and secure. So I'm going to provide just a few bits of operational results that we have had over the last week or so. And just to let the public know that all of our focus are not towards the Emergency Powers Act and not towards the state of emergency, but we continue to do what we are mandated to do in ensuring that Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit-Madec remain safe, that our criminal elements are being focused on, and that crimes that are committed are being investigated and arrests have been made. In recent days, we were fortunate enough to arrest a gentleman in the south of the island for being in possession of a flat-screen television. From this one arrest, we were able to serve 4 housebreaking and stealing that have been outstanding for some time. So that's a significant result for us, a significant achievement for us going forward. On Saturday the 18th, in spite of the fact that we are under curfew and we have been advising the public to remain at home, we were able to arrest 3 gentlemen for being in possession of 379 pounds of marijuana. with an estimated street value of $859,572 EC dollars. And that's a significant fine at a time when we are under lockdown, at a time when we have been urging our people to social distance, and at a time when we are under state of emergency and curfew is in effect. In recent days, we have said to the nation that we have reported the fact that we have another murder, another homicide. The Commissioner has alluded to it in his presentation. I am pleased to say to the general public that sometime during the course of today, we will be able to charge someone in relation to that murder. We will be able to charge someone in relation to that murder, and that will bring closure to this 8th homicide that we have had, very unprecedented, as the Commissioner has indicated. But we continue to do what we have to do. We continue to focus on the Emergency Powers Act. We continue to focus on the state of emergency, but we also continue to focus on crimes in general and operational issues of the police force. So I do not want the public to think that our focus is one-dimensional, but we continue to do successfully what we are mandated to do, which is to keep Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit as safe as we can possibly do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Cohen. Now, many of you may have been wondering what is the role of the National Disaster Management Agency in all of this. Superintendent Sylvan McIntyre is here this morning, and he will be explaining NADMA's role.
Good morning to everyone, the viewing and listening public, and wherever you are within the diaspora, wherever you are in the world. Pleasant good day to you. I would like to first thank every one of you for your patience, your support, your tenacity to the extent. And I want to say a special thanks to the leadership of this process, the Honorable Prime Minister, Ministry of Health, and the RGPF for its sterling support and its operational functions that has been so effective over the period of time. I would just like to, at this moment, provide some clarity in terms of our functions as the National Disaster Management Agency. As you would appreciate and understand, some of you, if not all, that we are an agency that is positioned to provide national coordination of any state activity. As it stands, later on this day, we would be doing a press release that would give further clarity as to exactly and more details as to exactly what functions we are now positioned to do. This COVID situation, as has been well articulated, is a novel situation. We've not dealt with it before. It has been declared it's a pandemic, and therefore it requires a different level of response. The National Disaster Management Agency is positioned to facilitate aspects of this process. And I would like to repeat that it's a process and it is incremental. It goes in stages, and therefore our activities and role may not be necessary at all stages. However, we have been in the background, we have been part of the system, and we have been providing useful support to the national structure. As it stands, our press release later will articulate the structure that we have been operating under for the past couple weeks. We are enshrined within the function of the national system. That is the function of the special appointed cabinet subcommittee that is responsible for directing all of these activities. We form the link between the RGPF and that committee, and we give physical or we would give virtual support to the overall operation. The committee has approved a coordinating structure that includes the Commissioner of Police, the National Disaster Coordinator that represents NADMA, the manager of the Morris Bishop International Airport, the Ports Authority, the Social Services, Ministry of Education, the COVID Coordinator, the CMO, and permanent secretaries that will be co-opted based on the activities that are going to be rolled out or should be rolled out. Our functions, therefore, on a daily basis will include the routing of information. We facilitate any inquiries, and we direct and route anything that is relevant to the specific area, meaning that if any member of the public has a concern, a query, or would need further explanation or direction relative to anything that has been declared or rolled out by the RGPF, or as a matter of fact, any state entity. Most ministries are not operating, most government functions are performing virtually, and persons may not necessarily have the means of contacting these people. And this is exactly where we come in. We provide a supporting role for persons to be given the relevant information and to be directed accordingly. We've had 2 success cases that I would like to really speak about. There was one lady who had a very serious medical issue, and she sought guidance as to how this medication, not available in the Caribbean or in Grenada for that matter, and had to come out of the United States. And she was going around and wanted some clarity because that medication was needed for her daughter who was in dire need of it. She spoke to us at the agency. We were able to facilitate that process. We were able to tell her how that could have happened. She called back 2 days later and she was elated. She was expressing gratitude and thanks to the process that we were able to help her with. And there are a number of others, but that in itself is really a success story. The other issue was one-off. And listeners, viewers, you would appreciate that with this situation, there would be new vulnerables that would be identified. And in such a case, we would facilitate persons identifying anyone out there who they consider to be needy or who is very vulnerable. I wish to say at this point, we are not in a relief distribution mode. We are not distributing packages. We are in a pandemic, we are in emergency mode, and I wish to really strongly articulate that this is not a disaster, but we are positioned and we are prepared in the event that the situation escalates. And this is exactly where we are. So what we are doing is facilitating the process. One person indicated to us that they identified some persons, or a few persons, yes, that were considered needy. And our questions were, how do you identify and how do you justify such person as being needy? And some justification were provided. What we did was facilitated that information to the Social Services Department and Ministry that has sole responsibility for that. They were able to back that up against the list of vulnerables and needs that they have, and there it was, they were able to explain the process. And I am saying this to say that going forward, persons who are considered to be in need of special attention, if the information come to us, we will provide it to the social services, and thereafter it would be determined as to how need would be provided. In essence, we are functioning from the NADMA headquarters at Fort Frederick. Our operating hours are between 9 and 5 p.m. And after 5 p.m., if there is any need of further services in emergency capacity, persons can call the 911. Our numbers are 440-8390 right up to 8394, or 440-0838, or you can send us email nadma@spiceisle.com. Persons are there to attend to your needs and your queries and to facilitate the process. Once again, thank you very much for your patience and your understanding of the entire COVID situation.
Thank you very much, Superintendent McIntyre. I neglected to mention at the start to offer our apologies for the delayed start this morning. We got you up early with the intention of letting you know the information before the 8 a.m. start of business, and we did start a few minutes late, so we do apologize for that. Now, we are going to move into the question and answer segment. Mikey, I acknowledge your question there. Before we turn over to our media colleagues, Superintendent Cohen, I would just like to ask, in terms of the procedures that were followed in detaining, arresting the persons in relation to the drug bust because of the pandemic that we're in, can you give us a little bit of information about the procedures that you followed in terms of safeguarding health and safety?
Well, I'm not only going to speak to that specifically, but I'm going to speak in a general terms as to how we've been protecting ourselves as an organization. And we are mandated and very strongly influenced by the Commissioner to ensure that we wear our PPEs, our protective gears. And whenever we engage any person, whether it's to arrest or in a discussion. And if you drive around the country now, you will see almost 99.9% of police officers wearing their mask. In cases where they need to wear gloves, they're doing that. In cases where we need additional protective gears, we are doing that. So in the case of these arrests, these police officers, they took all of the necessary precautions to ensure that they were safe in the process and that they were protected in doing what they have to do. Obviously, the persons that we arrested at the time were not wearing any of those protective gears, and hence the reason why it was so much important for us to ensure that we protect ourselves against them, because we do not know where they came from, what sort of protocols they have been observing. But from a law enforcement point of view, we have been doing everything possible and necessary to ensure that we protect ourselves.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Cohen. Mikey, you may ask your question.
Now, the first thing I want to do is to make a statement and ask my first question. Now, a story was posted by the New Today yesterday, and they trusted their source and published that article. Now, based on the comments this morning by the Commissioner of Police, they would have gotten it wrong. Unfortunately, it happens, and these are some of the challenges that we as media entities and professionals face on a day-to-day basis. And whereas I appreciate the attempt to get the media houses to align themselves with responsible journalism, when a reference is made to a particular inaccuracy, I do not think it's fair to the other media houses to generalize. And that's my statement. And my question is, are persons allowed to socialize in small groups once they are observing the 6 feet social distancing during this period of this week at least?
Thank you very much, Mikey, for your question. On the first part of the question, out of an abundance of caution and not wanting to stigmatize any particular outfit, because I clearly recognize, as you have said, that mistakes and errors can be made. So the statement was chosen to make the statement in a very general context to ensure that we are all guided to exercise the necessary precautions when we treat with reporting information in a time of crisis. And addedly, and thanks for asking the question, for you afford me to fit this in, I also want to state clearly to all and sundry that the RGPF remains open and accessible. If there are any issue that we need to verify, please, our Community Relations Department is available. I think you all are well acquainted with Mr. Cohen. Contact him to seek verification so that we can minimize and mitigate as much as possible those incidents from occurring. Because when they do, irrespective of how small that might be in terms of number of incidents, the damage can be significant. So just for us to do the best that we can to mitigate and minimize these issues from happening. On the second part of the question, as it relates to gatherings, we are still in a 24-hour curfew environment. And so the concessions that has been provided is specifically to allow members of the public to carry out the different business activity and get back home. The lifting or easement, as we have said in these situations, must in no way be construed to indicate that we are out of the woods. As a matter of fact, this situation can turn in a matter of hours or days. And so we need to continue to exercise caution and to be vigilant so that we do not reverse the gains that has been made. So specific to the question of gatherings, no, we do not encourage gatherings. We still remain on the arrangement where persons will carry out the activity observing the physical distancing protocols and other guidelines, and to get back home as quickly as possible from carrying out those activities. Thank you.
If I may, on the first part of the question, I want to say this. The Commissioner indicated that the Community Relations Department remains open. I want to take the opportunity to thank the many journalists who messaged me last night for some sort of clarity on that issue. And I was able to say to most of them that, you know, to put it in the most famous terms now, that this was fake news. You know, so if whoever published the article has just taken the time to reach out to me, I would have been able to provide some information. Because as soon as this information became available, I started to get some messages on it from some journalists. I touched base with the commander of the Northern District, who in touched base with the commander of the Coast Guard. So within minutes, we were able to verify the authenticity or lack thereof of the information. And I made that information available to many people who touched base with me last night to say this is not accurate. So it's unfortunate that it got out into the public domain the way it did.
Mikey, do you have a second question this morning? Okay, Nancy, you're waiting.
Good morning. I have questions regarding the farmers markets. I visited them and found that there weren't very many customers there. And speaking to the vendors and the farmers, particularly at the Grenville market, they said people didn't know they were there. And then in the huge bus terminus in Grenville, there was maybe 6 or 7 tents, and the police officers was not allowing drivers in, and the vendors were saying people wanted to come in to collect their goods and were not able to. And as well, there were vendors on the street, and the vendors inside the market were saying all the vendors, whether they're licensed or not, should be in there with them so people would know where to come. I'm just wondering how, for the future, as this was the first experiment with the farmers market, how we would accommodate drivers coming in there, because there was a lot of empty space, and how you're going to let people know. One of the suggestions that was made by several vendors was we need loudspeakers out in the villages, making announcements about the time and the location. So that's open to the panel.
Okay, thank you very much, Nancy, for your question. And certainly, as you rightly identified, the issue of catering for the needs of the farmers and to allow the farmers the opportunity to provide the much needed supplies to our population and members of the public is so critical and pivotal, but we must do that in a responsible manner. The Grenville terminus was chosen, and as you clearly indicated, because of its size and its capacity to ensure that we maintain physical distancing while we provide those services, is one of the reasons why that area was selected. There are likely to be gaps in how it is administered. Whether or not it would or would not be appropriate for vehicles to come up and collect produce depending on the quantities is something that we will revisit and probably can improve on. But we have agreed as well that given the volume of farmers that we have out there, it is not practical to bring all of them into one space, or we will be self-defeating ourselves with being able to maintain all of the protocols and guidelines as it relates to the COVID-19. And so the compromise was made to allow farmers at the community level that if you have produce to sell within the prescribed time and days, you come out with a table by the road, you sell, of course observing the protocols, and then when you finish, you remove those items from the area. We are also cognizant of the fact that not every member of the public will have the ability to go to the vendors' market wherever they are established, because they may not have vehicles, the distance can be far, and they will not be able to reach that location. So it is in that context we also have to provide some flexibility in how these services are provided to meet the needs of every single member of our society. But I've noted the issues that you identified, and certainly we will work and see how this can be improved, a critical element of which is how best we can improve on our PR to let members of the public know where the farmers' markets are established and how it can be accessed. Thank you so much for your question.
Nancy, do you have another question?
No.
Akisha?
Okay, good morning to everybody. First, I'd like to get an update on the murder in Boca, and as it relates to the individual who threatened the Prime Minister and other officers. Can I get an update on these two instances?
Thank you very much for this question as well. Unfortunately, we do not have a progress on the matter of the homicide at Boca, but the matter remains under active investigation. There are elements of this investigation we will not want to speak to, or it can compromise the process of the investigation. But the point of note is that there is no significant progress on that matter in terms of persons being arrested or charged. As it relates to the issue against Prime Minister and RGPF that was made, that very unfortunate comment some time ago, that matter is also under investigation. We have taken a number of steps and are awaiting the formal response on those issues to take it forward, including letters were written to Facebook as well in terms of identifying the specific individuals. And I am committed to indicate to you here that even if such a matter is being committed outside of our jurisdiction, because of the severity of this particular situation, we will attempt to partner. We cannot influence, but we will attempt to partner with our colleague law enforcement officials from wherever that message may originate from, so it can be dealt with according to law. Thank you.
Akisha, any more questions from you?
Yes, I have a question for Superintendent McIntyre. Okay, so does NADMA have the capacity to deal with the current crisis, being the coronavirus here on island? And June 1st is designated the start of the Atlantic hurricane season. So what measures are in place to ensure the efficiency of the agency moving forward with both issues at hand?
Thank you, Akisha. To the first question, we are positioned as the state would afford us to. Whatever readiness we have, whatever resources we have, it belongs to the state. And our co-function is that of coordination. In this instance, we have a community health, we have a health issue, and so it is definitely driven by the health department. And so this is one of the reasons why you have not seen us for fronting most of the areas. I want to also say that with regards to the second part of the question, that we are conducting concurrent activities. We are not sitting on our laurels while the hurricane season is just upon us. So we've been looking at our shelter inspection process, our coordinators. As a matter of fact, the COVID intervention has propelled some of our activities for the hurricane season. We have revisited most of our plans, our contact listings, etc., and our district readiness has been mobilized in response to the COVID issue. And our district coordinators have been positioned in the event that our services were required. So this gives us a jump start into the hurricane season. One of the things we have looked at in particular is how we will prepare our shelters in the event that the COVID situation rolls out into the hurricane season, and God forbid that it increases to another level, that we have to have the hurricane season and have the COVID to deal with. We've looked at isolation areas within facilities, separation areas, as to how that can be handled. So yes, we are fully aware of the hurricane season, and we are prepared. We are being prepared for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Superintendent McIntyre. We have a question here coming from online, concern over the doubling of the violent crime rate over the last 2-year period. I'm not sure if the statistics will reflect an actual doubling, but the question is, how does the RGPF plan to address this?
Okay, thank you very much. And a very relevant question, and a question that affords us the opportunity to drill down even deeper in the necessity for us as a community to work together in ensuring the safety and security of our tri-island state, and to ensure that crime in its general context is remain at an absolute minimal. Safety and security and low crime rates is a competitive advantage for Grenada, and a competitive advantage that actually contributes significantly to Grenada being an area of attraction for business and many activities. And I take the chance to say all of this before answering the question specifically, for us to understand as a people that we all have a joint responsibility to ensure that we make an effort to keep our crime rates low and to collaborate with the RGPF and whoever is concerned as stakeholders in partnership to ensure that this happens. Yes, violent crimes in a general context, I cannot subscribe to say that it is doubling. We have, yes, and fair to presume or state a doubling of homicides specifically, but we do not have a doubling of violent crimes in a general context. And I kind of want to explain that because homicide is not the only violent crime. We have sexual crimes that are violent. We have causing harm, grievous harm, maiming, many other offenses that are acts of violence. To some extent, domestic violence is also acts of very violent crimes. And there is no evidence to suggest that the entire group is on the increase. However, we do have a serious concern with the issue of homicides. And as a people, we need to address this. The RGPF, prior to the onset of COVID-19, developed an approach and was ready to stage this by having deeper community engagement with a view of targeting the communities where we believe we can make an impact. We also intended to partner with significant community leaders across the nation in our community policing mechanism to position them as advanced persons on the ground to be a champion of peace in the respective communities. We must have a concerted effort in addressing attitudes of our people. The police is not omnipresent, and we can't be in all societies simultaneously at the same time. And as such, we need responsible members of the community. That way we observe an issue, rather than standing away, we might be able to get involved and point people in the right direction that can resolve these conflicts. But the lack of respect, tolerance, patience, and the lack of the desire to go to the police or some other third party to have those conflicts resolved amicably is part of the reasons that is fueling these incidents. And some of them are really unforced errors and absolutely unnecessary and probably should not have occurred if individuals were so guided. Thank you.
Mikey, I acknowledge you, but I have a question here from Linda Straker, which I will put to the panel before I come to you. With reference to a recent news item about the Cameroon refugee who was released into the care of a citizen, can you, Commissioner, enlighten us on the facts behind the matter?
Thank you very much again, Ms. Robinson, and thank you for the question. The facts in this matter, and if my memory serves me right, goes like this. This individual arrived in Grenada, I think on the 11th of March for vacation, and was given up to the 20th of March. The individual since left Grenada on the 16th of March for Trinidad, on the arrival of which the borders in Trinidad, as you will recall, were closed. And so that person was sent back to Grenada. On the arrival back in Grenada, the individual had only $200 and no means of supporting themselves. As a consequence, the RGPF was left with this individual and to care for him as best as we can with the facilities that we do have. Additionally, we engaged our Attorney General's office and were working closely with the Solicitor General through our Immigration Department in addressing this matter. An attempt to get a statement from this individual as it relates to his position and intent was futile. We did not have a statement. However, in conversation with one officer, we learned that he had an intention of applying for asylum. It matters not how the information come to us, by whatever means, But when it comes to us, the RGPF responds and take appropriate action in addressing the matter. And so we started to look into this. We understand further that the initial arrival here on March 11th was to seek asylum. But when it was identified that there wasn't an office at the time to address, they then went to Trinidad for the said purpose. And when was denied attention, then returned to Grenada. It is very fortunate that the individual accepting responsible for the care of the individual while we'll follow through with the legal proceedings on this matter, in addressing the matter, it is commendable that this individual took responsibility for the care of this individual at this point in time. We will continue to follow through on this matter till it comes to a successful fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mikey, your question?
As per the police comments this morning, on Saturday, 379 pounds of cannabis, compressed cannabis, was seized by police. And I further understood that 2 Vincentian nationals were detained as a result. My question is, how does the drug trade compromise our overall efforts to mitigate against the spread of the COVID-19?
Thank you very much, Mikey. One of the things we have become very versatile in dealing with is dealing with a multiplicity of tasks simultaneously. And we learned that through our experiences with the various natural hazards that impact our country. And so we are very aware that in times of crisis, criminal elements purportedly will seek to use the opportunity with the perception that the RGPF may be so distracted and engaged with other endeavors so that it might be easy for them to use that as an opportunity to carry out their activities. So as a consequence of this, we have consistently been very vigilant to the fact that there are many who will try to capitalize on this to commit crimes. As a matter of fact, not only this drug seizure, but during this period of time, I think we caught, subject to correction, at least 3 persons actually in the act of committing housebreaking and stealing. Because we also are aware that these individuals will seek to use these opportunities to profit from the crisis that we are in. So I will not say that the COVID-19 circumstances will contribute in any way to an acceleration of narco trafficking. As a matter of fact, it deters, because with our borders being closed, it gives us the ease of opportunity with maintaining vigilant Coast Guard patrols across the Tri-Island state to easily intercept. But I must add to this as well, that a lot of our successes, not just in this particular case, or not specific to this particular case, has been largely attributed to the overwhelming support that we have from members of the public. And I want to thank them here and to continue to encourage them. It is in this vein we will continue to keep Grenada safe, and it is in this vein we can see a stemming of the trend of homicides and reduction of any sort of crime that continues to plague us. Thank you.
Any further question, Mikey, or that's it from you?
That's it.
Commissioner, the police, the members of the Royal Grenada Police Force have been highly commended by many. The members of the Royal Grenada Police Force have been highly commended by many for the level of operation during this state of emergency in particular. But we have a question now about any reports of police abuse of power. Have we had any such reports during the period?
None has been brought to my attention, but I'm happy that you asked the question. And again, it allowed me to revisit this particular situation. It is a highly stressed environment for members of the force. They have been working very, very long hours, and committedly so, to ensure the safety of this nation. And had this force been a trigger-happy, a very uneasy, and a force that is quick to use unnecessary force, the 2 incidents that I referred to could have resulted in an explosive type of activity, driving through roadblocks in the dark of night. But I want to hasten to indicate, while I compliment the tolerance, the judgment of police officers, and the restraint exhibited in those specific cases, I also want to indicate to members of the public that we are not a perfect organization by no stretch of the imagination. And we have made, and we probably will continue to make errors. What we are not short of is an overwhelming desire to make sure that we serve you to the best of our ability and capability. If in the delivery of those services, at any point in time, you identify us to be wanting and deficient in any way, and specifically if it has to do with the abuse of power, then of course, please report that. And as history will show, the RGPF have always been quick and decisive in acting upon incidents of malpractice, corruption, abuse of power and authority, or use of force, as the case may be. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. A member of the public is seeking clarity as it relates to cocoa and nutmeg farmers. I know farmers are allowed. What is the situation as it relates to those specific farmers?
Yes, at this point in time, the focus has been on the farmers that provide food. But the COVID-19 committee is very aware, is very passionate, and understand the implications and consequences related to the issue of the wider farming sector of cocoa and nutmeg. Once we continue to maintain this level of safety and precautions by our attitudes, I am very confident that it will not be long before we have an open up to operate the issue of nutmegs and cocoa as well. I'm very confident of that. And it is a matter, I have had the privilege and opportunity to attend meetings of the COVID-19, and I know the issue and concerns of the farmers are discussed every single day. And nutmeg is one of those that are very regular. And I want to say why as well. In the discussions that have been there, and I asked the members of the committee to please permit me for saying this, but we understand as well how critical the issue of nutmeg and its sale is pegged to the economic viability of the nation, where we have downturn in other elements. So there is no blind eye being turned to the issue of the farming industry, because the COVID-19 committee understands critically its relevance as it relates to our economic viability. But in summing up, I will indicate that I believe it will be in the not too distant future once our situation continues to remain the same. And so I appeal to members of the public. We all have a responsibility to play our part in ensuring that we do not have a reversal in our trends. Do not take this lightly. We are not out the woods as yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think we have what will be the final question here this morning. Can an update be provided on the status of the 6th homicide that we recorded this year, that of Coleman Griffith?
I probably would answer this question in a broader context. Of the 8 homicides that we have, 3 remains unsolved. We had a homicide in St. Patrick that was part of a home invasion. We had the Coleman case, and we also have the one in Boca. All of those cases remain unsolved at this point in time. Understanding the critical nature of this, understanding as well our history with where we solved the majority, if not all, of our homicides, we have now put in place a dedicated task force for working those cases investigatively, because we do not want the daily burden of the CID in dealing with matters of current relevance, current breakings and crime, to detract our focus on the criticality of us solving those cases. The prevention of crime is foremost, but where crime cannot be prevented and has occurred, it is crucial that we actually solve them and solve them quickly. Cognizant of this fact, is the driving desire for us to make sure that we solve them. There are a number of issues in those cases, as I alluded to earlier in the Boca case, which I will not want to speak to specifically, but to assure you, the members of the public, that these matters are not outside of our vision and view. They are full in focus and are on the front burner, and we continue to pursue those investigations.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think we can put a wrap on things here this morning. Superintendent McIntyre, I will allow you to leave us with some closing comments, then we'll take some from the other members of the panel.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. I would like to say again, mainly conclude by saying thanks to everyone for your patience, your understanding, and I would urge people to remain safe during this period. It would really be remiss of me if I did not remind people to be safe and to be prepared for the hurricane season. Maybe we've not seen the worst of the COVID impact. Maybe we may not have more confirmed cases, but the long, drawn-out global and regional impact could be extensive, and we need to be prepared for it. And while we look at the health issue, preparedness for the hurricane season in terms of what you do, while you're at home and you have time, I urge you to look at your hurricane and general preparedness as we go forward. I would like to just conclude by saying thank you again to members of the RGPF and to my hardworking staff at NADMA. We've had some of them who've been out and volunteers who've been supporting that effort up there. I just want to express gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent McIntyre. Superintendent Cohen from the CRD, what are your parting words to
I just
our
want
viewers?
to remind the viewing and listening public that we are still under 24-hour curfew. There is an easement of the curfew on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., but we are still generally under curfew. Outside of those 3 days, the 24-hour curfew remains in force, and I just want to make that point clear. In addition to the curfew, I want to urge the public to continue to adhere to the protocols, all of the protocols, the physical distancing, the wearing of your mask. Those are still in force. We do expect you to keep doing that until the all clear is given. We are getting there significantly. We are opening up, as you have seen, but we can only continue to do that, if you continue to adhere to those protocols and ensuring that Grenada return to normalcy sooner rather than later. I want to take the opportunity to thank all members of the media who in some way or the other have been facilitating the dissemination of this information we have been providing to the public over the last couple of weeks. Some of you have been phenomenal, and I want to take the opportunity to say thanks. All of the members of the public who have called in one way or the other to provide information, we express our profoundest gratitude to you. And I want to say thanks to Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique for generally adhering to those protocols that have caused us to be where we are now, and we are looking at the brighter side of things.
Commissioner?
Thank you very much again. And I will begin by endorsing the comments of both Superintendent McIntyre and Cohen. And to extend on that, I too want to extend a very special thanks to members of the force and to encourage them. I know that this is a very trying and tough time, and Carnival is usually our longest task that actually lasts about 4 days of intense duties. But certainly this has been going on 2 weeks plus, and we don't know how long it's going to go on for. But I want you to understand, colleague officers, that you have a fundamental responsibility, one that we cannot shy away from as an organization, in ensuring the safety and security of our nation. I admire your efforts. I'm proud as Commissioner now to lead you, given the quality of service you have been delivering to the members of the community, and I want to encourage you to remain steadfast. In this context, I also want to say a very special thanks to a number of our corporate citizens. Grenlec has contributed to the force now $50,000. In addition to this, we've had contributions from Grenada Bottling, Sagico, the Grenada Breweries, Digicel, Sol, and even the Catholic Church through Bishop Harvey only on Friday contributed 500 masks to assist with the safety of our officers in the execution of their duty. Corporate Grenada, I want to say to you that your contribution is well noted and highly appreciated by me and the members and ranks of the police force, and has made a significant difference in our capacity to deliver the highest quality of service while remaining safe in the execution of our duty. Addedly, I want to say that I have observed from this period, in this period of adversity, I have been able to witness firsthand the coming together of Grenada in a very unprecedented manner. I now have on my phone chat groups that I can speak with the wholesalers and retailers of this country in one button, the insurance companies, the bankers. It is a coming together where these entities may even lack collaborative cooperation together. The issue of COVID-19 has brought us together where these individuals are afforded the opportunity to communicate amongst themselves, but more importantly, they have been providing us, the RGPF, with a lot of guidance, suggestions, and support. And so I think that coming together is what will be critical and pivotal in our success story. So I want to say to our critical stakeholders, thank you for your collaboration. Thank you for your support. I look forward to the continued effort, not just to me and the RGPF, but to the government and people of Grenada and the effort of our COVID-19 committee. This committee works almost 24/7, Sunday to Sunday. I do not think the public is aware of this, and I do not think they get enough credit for the hard work they are doing for us being responsible for where we are today. And so it is important for me to note that as well. Thank you very much, and God bless. Stay safe, Grenada.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. In wrapping up, I would just like to elaborate on some of the additions, well, to mention them briefly again, some of the additions that we have to the ease-in regulations this week. Accountants, bakeries, hardware stores, eye care providers, medical practitioners, butchers, insurance companies, restaurants for takeaway and drive-through services only, veterinarians. Those are just some of the additions that have been added to the ease-in regulations that are in effect Monday, Wednesday, and Friday this week from 8 to 5 p.m. Also, you would have heard during the course of the press conference this morning that Compass Shipping will start distributing barrels effective today. It is important to note that you are to await contact from that company. Do not show up at the location unless you are contacted by the company. We have to ensure, even though we have the additional business days this week, that we do maintain the protocols. It is the only way that we can ensure we continue to achieve success in the fight against COVID-19. I thank you so much for joining us this morning, to the journalists, the reporters who were part of the press conference, to the listening and viewing public. Thank you for tuning in. Continue to stay tuned to official sources of information. I am Press Secretary Philomena Robertson. Good morning.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new national party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.